A Warning About Pokemon Go by Yumo. If you haven't already jumped on the Pokemon Go hype train, consider yourself lucky. For the millions of us who did though, listen carefully. This game is more dangerous than you think. For those of you who don't know what it is, it's this GPS-based game on your phone where you walk around in real life locating these cute little monsters to catch them with a capsule. Sounds innocent enough, right? Now, when it first came out, I, like many others, was absolutely thrilled to stand outside my lawn for hours catching Pidgeys and Rattatas. It seemed that I was finally living out my childhood dream, even if I was just catching these stupid-ass purple rats. My house is located in a small suburban neighborhood, pretty far from town, but there were several lakes and woods nearby, which made the area quite beautiful. It was really fun to walk through the trails catching Pokemon. However, there weren't much around here, except for the really common ones my friends already had. I realized that there was even more to this game when I discovered gym battles and Pokestops. This got me biking all over town, trying to visit them and collect all the different types of Pokemon I could find. When I finally hit level 5, I joined Team Instinct, excited to finally start battling. This went on for a couple of days. My parents were thrilled that I was spending so much time outside instead of locked up in my room playing video games. I guess I was still playing, but as long as I was playing outside, my parents didn't care. About a week after I had downloaded the app, I was up late playing Overwatch, when I noticed there was a new Pokemon on my nearby list. Sweet, a coughing, I thought. I didn't have one of those yet. It was almost about 2 a.m., but I figured I'd just be outside for a little bit, and I wouldn't go far. I mean, you gotta catch 'em all, right? We'd just finished a round on Hanamura, so I told my friends I'd be right back. When I got outside, I realized that the street was actually pretty well lit, thanks to the multiple streetlights placed throughout the neighborhood. It was comforting. I'll be okay, I said to myself reassuringly, and began walking in a direction to test if coughing was getting closer. However, I'd made it pretty far, and I noticed that he remained at 3 steps. The number of steps indicates how far away it is from 0 to 3. I then turned around and headed back the other way, walking for about 5 minutes before I realized coughing still wasn't getting any closer. Frustrated, I decided to head back home, when I noticed a new Pokemon had shown up on my nearby list. At first, I wasn't sure what it was. It didn't seem to have a head and just had these long, thin arms and legs that were attached to its body. It reminded me of Deoxys in defense form, but I remembered that he wasn't even in the game. Then it hit me. It was Hitmonlee. I had heard my friends talking about how rare those were, and I quickly got excited. I was pretty far from home, but I was eager to show off to my friends my new Hitmonlee, so I continued down the road. As I proceeded in my quest for the monster, I noticed it got closer and closer, until it was at the top of my nearby Pokemon list. Glad to know I was on the right track. My excitement quickly turned to hesitation when I realized I had made it to the edge of the woods. I'm a pretty avid horror fan, so I've read my fair share of scary stories about the woods. But here I was, about to catch a Hitmonlee, so I wasn't about to let some axe murderer or staircases turn me off from continuing down the trail. I reminded myself that I'd be quick, and thought of the glory of bragging to my friends, so I stepped foot into the eerie cluster of trees. Fortunately, a small dirt path had been cleared out, so I didn't have to worry about getting sliced up by a bunch of branches. The path was fairly straight also, so I didn't feel the need to turn on my flashlight. This game absolutely slaughters my battery. I followed the path all the way to a clearing where several picnic tables had been overturned. I shined my screen on them, and noticed several large splatters located on the wooden tables. They looked red, but in the dark it was hard to tell. I decided someone must have been playing paintball here, and used these for cover. A pretty good idea if you ask me. At this point, Hitmonlee was only 2 steps away, but when I tried to look for a way to keep moving forward, all I met with were trees. The path had ended. I had considered forcing my way through the thick foliage, but I guess I finally got some sense in me and passed it off as a bad idea. Disappointed, I turned to follow my trail back, and to my surprise, the Hitmonlee was getting closer. I didn't understand how walking in the opposite direction I was just going brought me closer to my target, but I didn't question it. Perhaps it was just being glitchy, and fortunately, that was in my favor. Or so I thought. I grinned as the 1 step quickly turned into no steps, indicating that the Pokemon was right near me. I stopped and waited for the sweet victorious vibration of my phone, and sure enough, it came. But something was wrong. Very wrong. First of all, Hitmonlee was brown. Whatever just popped up next to me on my screen was an ugly gray. I zoomed in and noticed that it didn't have any eyes. It was just a large blob with arms that stood up with 2 very long legs. I tapped on it to catch it, and my camera turned on. The arrows indicated that it was to my left, so I spun my phone around until I was pointing back in the direction of the clearing. My heart raced as I frantically looked at my screen for something, but there was nothing there. Just a lone Pokeball waiting to catch whatever I had just found. I'm not sure why I did this. It wouldn't have helped, but instinctively I flipped on my flashlight and immediately wished I hadn't. Whatever stood before me was neither a human nor a Pokemon. It was fucking terrifying. It had these 2 awful sunken holes the size of a beehive that might have been eyes if it had any. Its entire body was made up of this gray, rotten flesh that made me want to hurl just looking at it. I don't know how long I stood there, paralyzed with fear, before I noticed its body start separating at the abdomen to reveal thousands of tiny teeth that looked like horrid legs of a centipede. Then it screamed. If I wasn't running before, I sure was now. I was letting out these panicked whimpers as I tried to navigate my way home. With all the roots and rocks, I knew at one point I was going to trip, and that would be the end of me. Immediately after having that thought, my foot caught something hard, and I hit the ground, throwing my phone out ahead of me. I started crying, as I heard the sound of branches snapping getting closer and closer. I could see the headlines already. 19-year-old murdered in woods while playing Pokemon Go. At that point, I must have been pretty delusional, because something screamed in my head that I should grab my phone and throw a Pokeball at it. A Pokeball. At that thing. When you have nothing to lose, I guess you're willing to try just about anything. So I scrambled over to my phone and held it up in front of me like a holy cross. I flipped on the flashlight and focused on my phone screen. It's just a game. It's just a game, I repeated to myself. Suddenly, it leapt out towards me. I swiped my phone screen and closed my eyes, feeling ridiculous for what I had just done. And then I heard it, the sound of something being captured. I opened my eyes to see that nothing lay ahead of me except for a couple of rocks and twigs. But on my screen, there was a Pokeball. You know that anxious feeling you get when you're down to just a few Pokeballs, but there's a CP-428 dugong and you just have to catch it? Well, imagine that, but 100 times more terror and panic than you have what I was feeling. I prayed that whatever I had just caught would stay that way. I listened carefully, eyes closed. 1 tick, 2 ticks, 3 ticks. Caught. My mind couldn't process what had just happened. I just laid there on the ground, sobbing and shaking from whatever the hell I had just experienced. Eventually, I realized I didn't want to spend another second in these stupid woods, so I got up and checked my phone. The app had crashed. I didn't care. I started to run, but quickly stopped from the jolting pain that shot up my leg. I must have twisted my ankle pretty bad from the fall. I hobbled back home as quickly as my crippled foot would take me, and collapsed on the couch. The next morning I wanted to believe I had dreamed the whole thing, but the pain in my foot told me I hadn't. And then I decided to check my phone, so I started up Pokemon Go and checked my most recent Pokemon, and my heart sank. That abomination I saw yesterday was now in my phone. I summoned up the courage to tap on it, and it brought me to the stats screen like any other Pokemon. But everything, including its name, were just these weird scratch-like symbols. It looked just as terrible as it did last night. Disgusted, I decided I'd had enough of this stupid game and quickly deleted it. This was way too real for me. I was done catching Pokemon. But we all know that's not true. You can't just quit Pokemon Go. Sure enough, I downloaded it again a few days later and made a new account. The game is just too much fun. But I want to warn you guys, there's something sinister about this game, and I experienced it firsthand. I love playing it so much, but I feel like I'm being put in danger. Stay safe, everyone. I was still a little skeptical that this whole thing even happened, so I went back to that trail with some friends today to check it out. When we got to the clearing, we found something incredibly creepy that I think might help explain what happened. I'll finish typing it up in a bit, but I noticed on my screen that the coughing had popped up again on my nearby list. I still don't have one yet, and I really want it. It's almost midnight, but I figure I'll just be outside for a little bit. I won't go far. I mean, I gotta catch 'em all, right? I Should Never Have Played Pokemon Go by Mimesis. I don't know what to do. I don't even know if any of this is real. I'm telling all of you this so that you know the truth, and you can stay safe. Don't take this as a story. Take it as a warning. Ever since I was a child, I loved Pokemon. I loved how it was such a social game and so fun. The characters, the creatures, the world, it all drew me in. So imagine my surprise when they announced you could soon be able to play in real life. Walk around the world in real time, see your favorite Pokemon in real world locations, meet other people playing the same game. It sounded like a dream come true. When it became available and I started to download it, I was shaking, thinking about all the fun I would have, the people I'd meet. Little did I know I should have been shaking for an entirely different reason. Last night I was in my room, messing around on my phone. I went on Pokemon Go to claim my rewards from the Pokestop located just close enough to my room that I could access it from my bed. After I got some much desired Pokeballs, I decided to check my nearby tab to see if anything rare was in my area. To my surprise, I saw this. 3 footsteps, indicating that it was far away. Weird, I thought. That obviously doesn't look like any Pokemon in the series. I wrote it off as either a graphical glitch, it's not like Pokemon Go is free of glitches, or some rare Easter egg in reference to the mysterious Pokemon named Unknown. I screenshotted it and sent it to my friend Julie, asking if she'd heard of anything similar. Julie, who's too into astrology and Pokemon for her own good, told me it was the symbol for the Hanged Man. I told her that she was out of her head, but she insisted, telling me that it meant letting go and sacrifice. I definitely thought that was weird. What was some tarot symbol doing in a Pokemon game? I figured she was mistaken, told her good night, and decided to try and fall asleep. I laid down, closed my eyes, and started to drift away. That's until I started to regret becoming friends with Julie. Angrily, I opened my phone to see what she was texting me. You have to check it out. Go pursue it. You may have made some cool discovery. I mean, what if you're the first person to find something completely new? My psychic said something exciting was in the future of someone I'm close to. It never ended. Julie was always a little much. I muted the conversation and tried to go back to bed. Tried being the key word. My mind was racing with possibilities of what it could be. Annoying as she was, what if she was right? This could be the next Pokemon mystery. slightly hating myself for doing so. I opened Pokemon Go. I clicked the nearby tab to see if it was still there. It was, but now it was only 2 footsteps away, meaning it was closer than the last time I had checked. Huh, I thought. That's weird. In my experience, Pokemon never come closer to you. You have to be the one to go closer to them. Admittedly spooked, I closed the app, told myself I was crazy, and closed my eyes again. What's this all about? The symbol for sacrifice appears in my game and starts coming towards me? At this point, I was too intrigued to fall asleep. I looked up the Hanged Man. It's described as the most mysterious card in the tarot deck. It suggests sacrifice or surrender is the best option. I found that interesting. If surrender is my best option, should I just give up on this? I wanted to, but it was just too fascinating. This symbol completely goes against the themes of Pokemon. There's no way the developers purposely would have included it. I was lost in thought when I heard a loud gasp from my parents' room. Gross. That's probably my parents having sex in there or something. God knows I've walked in on them doing it before. Cringing at that thought, wanting to solve this mystery, and dying to get as far away from my fornicating parents as possible, I opened Pokemon Go so I can go out and find this Hanged Man. I opened the nearby tab and let out a little gasp myself. It's now only 1 footstep away. It's very close to me. I thought to myself, how unusual. This thing went from being very far away to very close, completely on its own. That's just not how the game works. I got a terrible feeling, sick to my stomach. I had to get out of the house. I slipped out my door, passing by my parents' room. I could see from the shadows under the door that there was a lot of movement, and I could faintly hear heavy breathing. Disgusting. I felt even worse and got out of my house. I wanted to find this thing, but at the same time I felt I wanted it to go away. How could this be happening to me? It was just approaching me, 1 footstep at a time, coming closer and closer to me. I walked in a beeline straight away from my house. If this thing was coming towards my house, I wanted away. So I walked to the nearest Pokestop and rested there. I checked my phone, dying to see if the Hanged Man was still close to me. My thumb glided towards the nearby button. I wanted so badly to know. I realized how silly I probably was. It's Pokemon, for God's sake. And yet, I truly felt as if I was dealing with something terrible. I hesitated, holding my breath, closed my eyes in fear, and pressed the button. I opened them to my disbelief. It was completely gone. Nothing nearby me but a Venonat and a Jigglypuff. I sighed with relief and felt like a royal idiot. It's Pokemon. There was not some astrology-based entity haunting me. It was just a graphical glitch. Nothing more, nothing less. Just in my head nonsense. Laughing at how afraid I was a second ago, I decided to go back home. Some silly Hanged Man being the last thing on my mind. Once I got home, I drifted past my parents' room as fast as possible, only to realize that it was completely silent and completely still. I put my ear to the door to confirm they were done being perverts, and much to my satisfaction, they were. I said, "I'm going to bed. Good night." To no response. Weird, they're not asleep since the lights are still on, and they always say good night to me. I knocked on the door. No response. Huh. The thought of the Hanged Man came into my mind, and I suddenly felt very heavy. Did something happen to them? What the hell is going on? I began to open the door, feeling my heart beat out of my chest. The high squeaking of the door made me cringe. The gust of cool air from inside their room made me shiver. But the sight I saw when the door was completely open made my heart drop to the ground. Tears welled up in my eyes. My vision began to narrow. My head hurt. Across from me were the bodies of my parents, lying in a pool of their own blood. I fell to the ground. Their throats were completely slit open, blood all over the floor and wall. My mind went blank. There's no way this is real, I thought. I was in complete shock. I just knelt there, staring at my dead parents, mouth agape. My body was shutting down. It was only when I looked up that I finally noticed it. Drawn crudely on the wall above the warm bodies of my parents was the symbol. It all came rushing back to me. I was right. Julie was right. It wasn't some graphical glitch. It wasn't a figment of my imagination. It cut open my parents' necks. I felt furious. I pulled out my phone. I had to call the cops. Whoever, whatever killed my parents couldn't be that far. I unlocked my phone and opened it to my most recent app, Pokemon Go. What I saw next made me drop my phone in my parents' blood. The symbol of the Hanged Man was right beside me. I clicked it, just as you would any Pokemon within your vicinity. I held it up to the wall, seeing if it would reveal something. Nothing. I slowly turned around, dying to see what would be there, yet dying to stash away my phone and forget anything had happened. I turned, slow as a snail, terrified of what it would reveal. I quickly snapped it towards the door, where the map said it would be. The opening revealed the grim darkness of the hallway, but there was no Hanged Man at all. I lowered my phone, shaking in fear of whatever might be standing in the darkness of the hall, when two dirty, long-nailed hands grabbed me from the ceiling. It pulled on my head, lifting me off the ground by my hair. I screamed in pain, swinging back and forth, kicking and thrashing wildly. I was a fly, helpless, and I had caught myself in a spider's web. In that moment, I was the Hanged Man. I dug my nails into the thing's papery skin, piercing its flesh like it had done to my parents a few moments ago. It let out an inhuman cry and dropped me. My hands were covered in its cold, sticky blood. I peered up at the ceiling, seeing where it hung. It gazed down at me with large black eyes, long black hair dangling down, feet bound together and tied to the ceiling. It made a grin, revealing its sharp rows of teeth. I stared up at it like a child standing before an abusive father. I felt smaller than I'd ever been before. Wielding its long, sharp nails, it cut the rope binding it to the ceiling, and on all fours crawled out the door at inhuman speed, leaving behind a trail of its dark blood. I opened Pokemon Go and checked the nearby tab. 1 footstep away. 2. Then 3. And then, like a drop of water in the ocean, it was gone. I've just called the cops. I'm typing this from my room, as I can't bear to look at my parents' bodies. I'm waiting for their arrival, nervously checking the nearby tab on my phone frequently. I think it's gone for good, so for the love of all that's holy, delete Pokemon Go. Don't hesitate. Don't mistake my message. I know I should have never even downloaded it, so learn from me and stay safe, or else you'll find yourself the next victim of the Hanged Man. What's up, guys? Blue Spooky here, as always. Just wanted to thank you guys for watching, especially if you made it this far to the end of the video. There will be links to the stories in the description if you'd like to take a look at them, and also if you like the author's work. So be free to check those out, and check out the authors if you like their stuff. I figured for today I'd try to do something different. This will be the first in the series of NoSleep stories and creepypastas that I'm going to be reading. Please let me know what you guys thought of it, and how you think I can improve on reading these creepypastas, because this is the first set of creepypasta / NoSleep stories that I've done pretty much. I had a lot of people asking for Pokemon Go stories, but since I couldn't really find any Pokemon Go stories that hadn't been already read by people like B-Busta, I figured, why not read some Pokemon Go NoSleep stories instead? Still should be a fun time. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. If you did, please feel to leave a comment about what you thought, or perhaps like, share, or subscribe if you feel so inclined. If you guys have any particular no-sleep stories or creepypastas that you'd like to hear read in the future by me, please feel free to leave the suggestion in the comments below. If you find a creepypasta that's particularly interesting, or you write a creepypasta that you'd like me to take a look at, links to my social media will be in the description below, including my Facebook, Gmail, and Twitter accounts. You can go ahead and send me a message on any of those. If you do submit a creepypasta for me to read, and it gets read in a video, please include in the tagline what is the name of this story, and also how you'd like to be credited as the author in the video the story appears in. If you guys are curious about the music used in the video, all music is listed in the description, in the order which it appears in the video, and I'll have links to the artists as well. So if you're curious about the music, take a look down there in the description. As another update, I've taken some of your guys' advice, and I try to use a bit more sound effects this time. Let me know what you thought of that, please. I think it added a bit to the ambiance, but I'd like to hear your guys' opinion on it. Last but not least, these no-sleep stories are going to be read in between True Scary Stories days. I'll also be including some SCPs and creepypastas in there too, so expect to see a lot more variety on the channel. I don't really know how the turnout's going to be, so let me know what you guys think. If you have any constructive criticism, please feel free to leave it in the comments below, as I'm always looking for new ways to improve the channel. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a great day.